Live from Orlando, it's Hamcation. Hey there, welcome back to HamShack TV. I'm your host, Josh, AA4WX. Appreciate you tuning in. If you've seen this particular clip before, it's because I'm using this as a generic open. That way I don't have to, I can cut between different things and make it easier to edit. So I hope you enjoy the content that's coming up for you right after the opening sequence.
All right, so we'll start on time. Why NARA, why now, and why the heck not? We're going to start backwards, because why do things the way we should? We're going to start backwards and say, why not? We're going to start there. Many hobbies. Now, amateur radio is just one of my hobbies. Whenever I was young, back in school, I used to do magic, and I did balloon animals and stuff like that. And when you're 16, 17 years old and you can charge $75 for a half-hour magic show at a kid's birthday party and make $75, you think that's a pretty good deal. And that was a hobby of mine. I kind of collect buttons and pins, not a huge hobby, but it's something that I enjoy doing whenever I travel. I like to get a pin from wherever I'm at. So people have multiple hobbies. There are motorcycle enthusiasts. There are aviation enthusiasts. There are, gun enthusiasts. There's all these other hobbies. There are even magicians. And many of these hobbies benefit from having multiple national organizations. You can join one, you can join the other, you can join both. So it's not an either or. Half of our members, which we are at 460 members, and half of them are ARRL members. So it's not a one or other decision. But we find that these other hobbies like aviation, motorcyclists, and gun enthusiasts, they thrive because they have multiple organizations advocating for their hobby. And it's been too long since amateur radio's really kind of only had one national voice that speaks to the FCC, that lobbyists the government, that protects their spectrum, that creates resources for clubs. So the question is, why not have another national organization? The benefits definitely outweighs the cons. And some of the benefits include when you do advocate, you have multiple voices saying the same thing. The benefits also include the friendly competition. When you have competition, you promote excellence. There are things that the ARRL will do, and we're going to look at that and be like, that's a really good idea. Man, we need to come up with a really good idea. And I should hope that there are things that we will do as an organization that the ARRL will look at and be like, oh wow, they're doing this for clubs. Wow, what can we do to make clubs better? And it's that friendly competition going back and forth that is actually a benefit to the whole hobby as a whole. So having a multiple national organizations, not a bad thing. And I think it will benefit the hobby. It gives people options. Sometimes you agree, sometimes you disagree, but you have options and you have fail-safes. If something should happen to the ARRL, they're not the only national organization. So there are many benefits to why not have another national organization. So why now? Like, it's been 100 years that they've been around. Like, why should a new organization come up now? And I was looking at amateur radio numbers over the last several years, and it seems that since COVID, and everyone remembers COVID, right? Not too long ago, but we don't talk about it much. But since COVID, there has been an uptick in amateur radio licenses, which is really interesting. I could see that if you're at home and have nothing better to do and you can't get out and you can't do something, get your license and talk on the air. The ARRL has been doing the Teachers Institute and getting teachers to take amateur radio back into their schools. We're seeing more youth get involved in amateur radio. We're seeing more clubs forming in the last 3 to 5 years, and more digital modes being developed. People are tinkering, people are getting licensed. VEs, it's getting easier to get licensed, because it used to be you had to wait until the 3rd Saturday of the month when your local club had a VE testing, and then you could go down to the VE club and get your license, right? Now you can literally get online and you can schedule a license anytime between like 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. And you can even schedule, sessions later than that. So it's getting easier to get your license. You don't have to wait for your local club to have your monthly testing. I think now is a great time for amateur radio. I really see it as a hobby that's, I don't want to say re-emerging because it's been around, but maybe there's a renewed interest in it since COVID. Plus you have some of these huge disasters where, like Hurricane Helene that went through Tennessee and North Carolina, and that brought a lot of media attention to amateur radio and the people who were operating on the air at that time. So I think there's a very high interest in amateur radio right now. We're seeing things like a Tennessee Amateur Radio Association. They just developed as a statewide association there in Tennessee to kind of get their clubs to work together and collaborate with one another. There's a Minnesota association, I think it's Minnesota Amateur Radio Coalition up in Minnesota, that works to get their clubs in areas working together. There's a DX, there's the Arizona DX Association, but there's also a Arizona Amateur Radio Council, I think, out in Arizona. And there's these clubs that are rising up, working on getting clubs within their states to work together. So we're going to try and amplify that on a national level. They're already doing great things. We're going to look at that and be like, okay, well, how can we amplify that and support those organizations that are already within their states that are working on supporting their clubs, and how can we empower them to do the best job that they can, and what can we give them to do that? And that's really our aim. When we decided to come up with the National Amateur Radio Alliance, you can imagine we threw around a lot of different names and a lot of different acronyms. How can you make a organization that sounds good and has a lot of different, has the impact? But we came up with the National Amateur Radio Alliance, and it almost could have been National Radio Alliance or something like that. I don't think we should exclude GMRS operators and things like that. I think they have a valid place in our community. They have a valid place in emergency communications, and they are more than welcome to join the Alliance, because the Alliance, I think, is a great term. It is a group of businesses, people, organizations who are allied together to support amateur radio. And that's it in a nutshell. We're all people who love amateur radio. We want to see amateur radio thrive, and we want to do what we can to promote and protect the hobby. So Alliance is a fantastic name. And I'm proud of where we've come in the last 8 months. So if we answer the question, why not have another national organization, and why now is a good time to step onto the stage and create another national organization, the final question is, why NARA? Which is a little bit harder to maybe answer. There are other organizations out there who could easily become a national organization. Now, one, for example, they're not, and they don't do a bunch of advocacy, but if you look at the Long Island CW Club, they have operators in all 50 states and probably around the world if we took a look at it. So they could be poised in a great position to become a national CW organization if that was the desire. If that's what they wanted to move to, they could easily become a national CW organization. And I think we're in a hobby that could support 3, maybe 4, possibly even more national organizations. I mean, do the math, 800,000 licensed amateur radio operators. If you break that down, you could have 8 national organizations, each with 100,000 members and a mighty, mighty voice for lobbying government, getting the word out there, supporting emergency communications. I mean, you could really have a mighty voice. So I wonder if even limiting it to 2 national organizations is not thinking big enough, So why NARA? We hit the ground running back in March. Our first initiative, I say our first initiative was Club Week, but really it was the Excellence in Amateur Radio Award, which I may touch base on here shortly. But our first initiative was Club Week. And Club Week is a week-long celebration for clubs to get on the air and talk to other clubs and exchange QSL cards. Now, it's not a contest. I'm not a contester. There's no points. There's no logs to submit. There's nothing to submit. You don't get a plaque. You don't get a certificate or anything like that. But we wanted an opportunity for clubs to get on the air, use their club call signs, and talk to other clubs and exchange QSL cards. So that was basically it. We wanted them to be able to exchange QSL cards and foster that conversation. So we're not just on the air doing, this is W4OPS, you're 5'9", 73, CQ, CQ, CQ. Oh, this is W4OPS, you're 5'9", 73, CQ, CQ, CQ. That's great, and people enjoy that, and that's what the Parks on the Air people do a lot. But I'm a ragture. I like to talk. And I like to have conversations. Where are you from? Even whenever I'm activating a park, someone will be like, you're 5'9" in Minnesota. Oh, Minnesota. Where are you from in Minnesota? My brother used to live there. It's that stop conversation and connection that I think is important in amateur radio. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to bring community, more into the hobby. And have more community within in our hobby. Just because we're disconnected by hundreds and thousands of miles away doesn't mean we need to kind of disconnect our humanity. Having conversations on HF, I feel like it's a wild idea, but it's not. So we did Club Week. After that, we started looking at other things, and we decided, well, if we're going to support the hobby, we need to figure out we need to drill down what the needs are. What do we need to work on? What do clubs need? And what are the trends? So we came up with this idea of having a national amateur radio survey, a State of the Union survey, to ask these questions and figure out where the needs and where the trends are. So we came up with the State of the Amateur Radio survey. And that's one of the things that we're looking into and trying to develop. We looked at how we can outreach, so we came up with ideas for going into the homeschool communities. We looked at other awards that people might be interested in how we can recognize outstanding people within the community. And we came up with the Alfred Vail 2020 Young Keyers Award. Now this is an award for 2 people in this room. You have to be under 20. So, literally only 2 people in this room would qualify for it. But it's for youth who are proficient at 20 words per minute or better at CW. So it's the Alfred Vail 2020 Young Keyers Award. And our youngest board member, which is Josiah, he's 18. He's an avid CW enthusiast, super quick, 25 words per minute easy. He does D-Expeditions. He's the Parks on the Air mapping coordinator for the state of Oklahoma. So he's really into ham radio. And I met him and I'm just like, I'm impressed. Would you consider serving on the board of the Alliance and help get this off the ground? So he joined as our youngest board member, which is exciting because he has a unique perspective on amateur radio. So we came up with this award, and I'll take just a moment to explain Alfred Vail, because people are like, why not Morse code, right? Anybody think that? Like, it's a Morse code award, why not Morse code? Or a Samuel Morse, why not the Samuel Morse 2020 Young Keyers Award? And how many have heard of Alfred Vail? Okay, a couple. How many CW people we have in here? Any CW operators? Okay, well maybe you don't care, and that's why I tell you to ask questions, so I talk about stuff you care about, but you're going to care about this for just a second. Alfred Vail is a gentleman who worked with Samuel Morse, because you guys have heard of Samuel Morse, right? Everyone's heard of Morse code. Alfred Vail was a gentleman that worked with Morse on the development of Morse code. Now, it may have been Samuel Morse's idea and said, well, we can do this and send things long distance and stuff like that. But Alfred Vail is a gentleman that really kind of took that idea and said, hey, that's a good idea. How can we refine this? How can we make it better? How can we create this into something that's actually usable? And he was very instrumental in refining the Morse code that we now use today. And that, I think that's a story. It's part of amateur history that has to be told. Because just because we're a new organization, right, it means we can totally ignore history and just make things up as we go. I don't think that's true. We're a new organization. We like QSL cards. We want to honor the historic traditions of amateur radio and preserve that history. So we decided to go with the Alfred Vail, and it's a little bit symbolic because if I was standing here in front of you and I said, hey, you guys want to see a demonstration? And I walk over here and I pull up this keyer, right? Follow me, cameras. I pull up this keyer and I'm like, watch this really cool demonstration. Okay, so what just happened? Nothing. But when you hear coming back out of it, you're like, whoa, what's that? Yeah, I'm speaking to my friend. Let me show you. I'm speaking to my friend over here. I'll send him hi. And you guys have this dialogue. Now you actually have a demonstration. If there's not, my point is, if there's not someone on the other end of that line when you call CQ, it's not impressive. You're talking to yourself. And like Alfred Vail, who was on the other end, who was able to send that CQ back to do that demonstration, it's important that we have youth and new people in the hobby who are able to continue those traditions of amateur radio, so we're not just sitting there calling CQ to ourselves. So that's the little story of why it's called the Alfred Vail 2020 Award. But I think it's very symbolic of the youth and having someone on the other side of that transmission line. I think it's a fun story. So, rant done. Why NARA? We started with a lot of initiatives. We now have 450 members. We're in all 50 states already. One of the things that sets us apart, not only can you join as an individual, but an organization or a corporation can also join the alliance, because we all have a vested interest in seeing amateur radio thrive and succeed. Trust me, HRO wants to sell more merchandise. Yaesu wants to sell more radios. We all have a vested interest in seeing this hobby just blow up and thrive, and we want more people involved. But they have a unique perspective when they come to the table. And in organizations, if you're the president of a club, you have a unique perspective when you come to the table. So we didn't want to exclude any of those organizations from being a member of the Alliance. Likewise, and when we talk about coming to the table, I'm not thinking of a typical table like this. I'm actually thinking of a round table. And that goes back to King Arthur, Sir Lancelot, Knights of the Round Table, Merlin, right? I know you guys never thought you'd come to a ham radio forum and hear someone talking about Merlin or King Arthur. But when we developed our hierarchy, if you will, within the organization, we chose not to title any of our representatives. So we don't have division directors, managers. We didn't go with the whole, we could have gone with the whole like fire service and had like sergeants and deputies and deputy chief this and stuff like that. We didn't go with any of that. I refer to you either as an ambassador or a representative. You're an ambassador of NARA or you're a representative of NARA, because there's no, I'm better than you, I have a better title than you. It's, you like the hobby, I like the hobby. What makes you better than me? I promote ham radio, you promote ham radio. Sounds like we're on the same side. people ask me whenever I talk about the ARL, people are like, are you in competition with the ARL? And I say, you know, if there's a line drawn in the sand, right, and we're both on the same side of the line, where's the competition? You know, if we have the same goals of a thriving, well-educated, prepared amateur radio community, where's the competition? So we don't have any hierarchy directors. Now we're looking for state representatives, regional representatives, territory representatives, because we have the national, right? And now we're breaking that down to local levels so that we can support the states, so we can support the local communities. But I think in the last 10 months, at a rate of 450 members in the last year growth, NARA is poised in a good spot to be that National Amateur Radio Association to step on stage and promote and support amateur radio. Of course, we do that by creating a solid foundation, and we've spent lots and lots of time doing it. And Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So it will be a process. But the goal is to create the processes and to set it up for success. Because I think that's what any good leader does, is they set their people up for success. We wrote into our bylaws term limits. So unfortunately, because I am the president, there are only so many terms I can serve before I am no longer eligible to be president. We did that for a couple reasons. A, I don't want career politicians. I don't want someone coming in here and being in charge of the organization for 20 years and have it grow stagnant. We want new ideas, fresh perspectives. So I have limited time to create this solid foundation so that whenever I step out, someone else can step into my place. And that's the goal. But we have 4 national officers, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and we have 3 territory representatives, an eastern, a central, and a western United States. We took those 3 territories, and really we took the whole U.S. as a whole. We got 7 board members, right, 4 officers, 3 territory representatives. Those 7 people are on this board. We took the U.S. and then we said, well, how can we divide this out? Are we going to have like the Boy Scouts or American Red Cross? Are we going to have chapters? You know, are we going to have like the Boy Scouts? Are we going to have councils? You know, the council, Mid-American Council of Boy Scouts. How are we going to break down the U.S.? And we decided to divide it into 4 regions, right? Makes sense. You have Call Region 1, Call Region 2, Call Region 3. No. That's not how we did it. We did break it down into 10 call regions, but we looked at the map, we looked at existing boundaries, and we broke the NARA into 10 regions based on current FEMA regions. So our Region 4 is FEMA Region 4. Our Region 6 is FEMA Region 6. Why do you do that? Well, if we're a national organization and we're supporting emergency communications, it just makes sense. So we have 10 regions. Those 10 regional representatives serve as an advisory board to the board of directors. Even though we have 7 board of directors, we want outside influence, right? So we want more input. So if you're going to be in charge of Region 4 and you're going to be an ambassador for NARA in Region 4, we want you to talk to your state representatives, find out what their needs are, what they want, what they need help with, and bring that back to the board and say, hey, people in my region just went through this, or we're seeing this growth stagnant in our region, and we need to figure out how we can improve on this. So those 10 regional representatives become an advisory board to the board of directors. Likewise, we want youth in amateur radio. And I don't think anyone here would say, no, I don't want youth in amateur radio, but I would hope not. But I believe And a lot of this outline of NARA has come from my just personal philosophies in life, right? Because you inject yourself into your hobbies and what you do. But I don't think we just want youth and amateur radio. How can we do better? Like I mentioned before, how can we do better? So I don't want to just see youth and amateur radio. I want to develop a youth leadership program within the amateur radio community. Because what we really want, we say we want youth and amateur radio, right? But what we really want is to develop youth to be the next us. You know, we want to develop youth to carry on the tradition and introduce their youth to it and carry it on. So we don't just want youth. We want the next aviation technicians. We want the next CEO of ICOM. We want the next engineers at Boeing. We want the next club president. Like, that's the goal, is to develop these youth into leaders and give them opportunities. Things like the youth expeditions that our Vice President Josiah goes on. Things like Youth on the Air, where they're taking youth and they're letting them run and do their programs at the youth camps that Youth on the Air does. So we want to support that. And we want to develop a youth advisory board that is between the ages of 9 and 17, 10 and 18. Pick your numbers. We just want youth where we can go to and say, hey, we're getting ready to go to a homeschool show, right? And we're going to have all these kids here, and they're going to be walking up and down the aisles, but we have 30 seconds to grab their attention while they're walking down this aisle to get them to come over to our booth. What kinds of things can we put on our table? What kind of things that youth are getting excited in that we can put on our table that will attract their attention? Because they have a lot better perspective than I do whenever it comes on, what's going to attract their attention. So I think having a youth advisory board where we can go to them and be like, hey, we're going to do this, and they can be like, dude, that's a dumb idea. And we'll respect that because that's their opinion, and they know better. So I hear stories, and one not too long ago about a couple of homeschool kids, real active in amateur radio. But there was a statewide communication system, right? And there's a Skywarn net that happens on the statewide communication system. And these are, amateur radio operators who do contests and very well spoken, can easily handle a net and anything you throw at them. But the lady who ran the statewide, net schedule for this said, no, there's no place for kids on this net. It's a professional Skywarn net. There's no place for kids on it. And I just think to myself, that is the wrong answer. That is the absolute wrong answer. So we should be giving these kids opportunities. In fact, if you have a club, and if you don't have a, what would you call it? I'm not sure what would you call it, but if you have a club and you have youth in your club and that youth does not have a position, create one. Whatever it is. Director of a youth enthusiasm, I don't care what you call it. Call it something. Give these kids an opportunity, because I'll tell you what, they are ready. And if you go to any youth forum at Dayton or here or something like that, I think these kids are ready. So you won't hear me saying anything negative about, youth aren't getting involved and clubs aren't growing. And, ham radio is just in peril, because it's not. And anyone who says any of that stuff, I'll just be like, well, where have you been? Get out from under your rock, because youth are getting involved. We see it in Discord chat rooms where there's 3,000 people, and the majority of those people are youth under the age of 25. We see it on the Youth on the Air forums. We see it in the number of applications that Youth on the Air receives every year for their Youth on the Air camps that they have. Like, youth are getting involved. New clubs are not only thriving, more clubs are developing. And if you do have a club that is going through a slump and it's not growing and you're not getting youth, you have to look at your engagement and come talk to us, because that's what we need to do as a national organization, is help and empower you, not tell you like, your club's not growing. You haven't had people joining last year. Well, you need to figure that out. Like, this is your job. As your president, you need to figure that out. No, I mean, what he does. But us as a national organization, we need to help him figure that out. Especially if he's a member of the alliance. Like, if you're a member of the alliance and you have a club and you're not coming to us saying, hey, you know, what can you do for me? How can you serve me? How can you help me? You know, you're doing yourself a disgrace, because we're here to empower and promote and help out amateur radio. So I think NARA is in a spot where it can keep going and continue to thrive. But I've spoke way too long. I don't know where I'm at. Time check. Here's the clock. Half hour. Yeah, I spoke way too long. Questions, please. Yes. This is why I have a wireless microphone. Look, I did this. I'm not confined. What's up, man? I'm Mike.
Thank you, David.
David.
All right. Okay. Do it this way. Okay. Let's go take you back to your survey question. Who?
Talking to the mic.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay. All right. Go back to your survey question. Okay. The survey is going to be collected and be used by who for what purpose?
That is a great question. So one of the things is, and it's so important, so important, National State of Amateur Radio Survey, right? If we're asking questions like, what is the determining factor when you purchase amateur radio equipment? Is it price, features, versatility, okay? Or whatever. That's a good question. And we may get 90% of people consider price as the factor in purchasing their amateur radio equipment. We cannot keep that to ourselves. We need to share that with ICOM, Yaesu, Kenwood, HRO, Gigaparts, because they can also benefit from this information. So we certainly don't want to keep, we don't want to take this information and keep it to ourselves. We want to share it with these other organizations, the ARRL, local clubs, manufacturers, distributors, and stuff like that. So I think it's important to share that information. We'll do the legwork, but we'll share it. Yeah, Larry.
So yesterday, when talking to you, you convinced me to join. And while you were talking now, I joined up. So when you look, I'm a new member.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. You know, it's amazing. So my philosophy, and I go back to you inject your philosophies into what you're doing. I'm not a salesman. I used to sell timeshares. I did. I didn't like the job, but I used to do it. But I've done a lot of logistics, and I love logistics. If you ever get an email from me on the bottom, it says Director of Operations and Logistics. It doesn't say President, Director of Operations and Logistics. Because I like challenges, right? That's why we're ham radio operators. We like challenges. I'm Director of Logistics, but it's one of those things where if you like what we're doing, why not support us? If you don't like what we're doing, please let us know and tell us how we can do better. But if you like what we're doing, I'm not going to throw an application in front of your face, but why not join us? What's up?
Well, I don't need that because I can certainly talk. You mentioned youth as a foundational component with an advisory board. Have you also decided to survey the advisory board and then determine subcommittees to approach each of the specialties they come up with?
Oh, that's like a loaded question. Now, we've only been around for a year. Give me some time. I think there's a lot of good that we can do for the amateur radio community. It may be a slow uphill battle as we develop some of these things, and I'm not naive. I mean, I'd be completely naive to say we're not going to have growing pains. George Washington, after he decided not to run again as the first president of the United States, he said, I would be naive to think that I did not make mistakes during my tenure as president. And it's the same thing. I'm going to make mistakes, I'll tell you that. But I want people to hold me accountable. I had a person email us the other day that said, I think I'm going to cancel my thing. And I said, why? And he's like, well, I never hear from you. And I'm like, you're the member I want. I want you as a member to say, hey, you're not telling your people what we're doing. I want people to hold us accountable and say, you need to have better communication with your members. Or I want people to hold us accountable and be like, well, you have this advisory board, but you never listen to them whenever they give you advice. Like, why do you have the board? We definitely need to have committees to work on subcommittees, finance committees, events committees, awards committees, whatever we decide to go, youth engagement committee. And the thing that makes us kind of unique, and this is for the corporate people, let's just say Ham Threads is an organization that belongs to NARA. If they have 2 or 3 employees and we create a committee, because they belong to the organization, an employee of theirs can apply to be on that committee if they're passionate about it. So it's not necessarily just the board of directors who's on a committee. If you're interested in serving on a committee and you don't serve on the board, your voice isn't any less important. Like, we want you to be a part of that committee if it's something that you're passionate about, because we want to hear those. Did that answer your question?
Yes, but one little piece of information for you. Your bylaws will be your governance document. Your standing rules will become your operational guide.
Yes.
So that is the point where you can have the flexibility to grow in the establishment of committees.
Which is good. Yeah, which is good. Developing bylaws are hard. Like, I see you're assistant emergency coordinator for the ARL. I'll tell you what they went through with their bylaws last year and stuff like that. That's we spent a year developing our bylaws. One of the things we did is we partnered up with, and I say partnered up, we paid money, lots of money, to the foundation group out of Nashville, Tennessee. They're a group that specializes in nonprofit compliance. And again, this goes to why NARA. I knew if we were going to grow an organization and it could grow into a $1 million a year, organization, or become, 200,000 members, we had to do it right off the bat. Hey guys, I know you're leaving. Don't mean to punch out, but thanks for coming. Okay. We had to do it right off the bat. So one of the things that we did was we paid the foundation group to make sure all of our T's were crossed and our I's were dotted. We wanted to make sure that we had the nonprofit status that we wanted. We had to make sure that we had the charitable solicitation that we wanted. We wanted to make sure we had all the stuff in our bylaws that we needed. And we're working on developing member handbooks, director handbooks, rules and regulations, rules and procedures for elections or something like that, on how elections are conducted. We're working on 2 to 3 year plans and 3 to 5 year plans. So I meet regularly with some of the other board members, and we talk about this stuff and our statement of association, the statement of purposes, and the bylaws to get all that stuff right. And I hope it's right, because I don't want to have to redo it anytime soon. But all that stuff has been submitted. It's been submitted to the foundation group, and we're just waiting to hear back from the IRS for their final nonprofit approval. But the great thing is, even though we paid the foundation group, they have a money-back guarantee that if they file the application with the IRS, then it won't get rejected. So we're pretty positive that we have that nonprofit status that we did. Any other questions? What's up?
I know this is talking into the future.
What is the deal with you emergency coordinators? I have another emergency coordinator over here harassing me. Yeah.
There's things going on in our mind,
Right?
But with being divided up into the FEMA regions, which I think is great. Number 2, are you going to be in the future requiring, or maybe not requiring, that might be the bad word, following him with the ICS courses that are required by FEMA in order to be able to do like Aries events?
So there's a couple things, not to...
What was the question?
So the question is, along with the being divided up into FEMA, Are you going to do other things like the ICS coordinates and coordination and things that go along with that? If you ask me, and if you stop by the booth, if I don't get to your questions, stop by the booth and talk to us. We focus on 4 things: engagement, resources, advocacy, and outreach. Of those 4 things, emergency communications is not listed because it's a given. If you're a national organization, if you're a ham radio organization, there's going to be an emergency communications component. So we do want to establish the regional co-ops. We want clubs in certain regions to work together. And we just recently, last month, we had a meeting with the National Weather Service and the people who oversee the Skywarn program to be recognized by them as a national organization and to promote more people getting Skywarn certified. We have seen people who want to step up and are able to provide communications. One of the things that has always kind of irked me about things like ARES and RACES and EMA is if you want to get like an Oxcom trainer or want to do something, they always ask, who's your affiliated agency? What EMA or local sheriff's department or what county are you working from? But the thing is, as Helene clearly showed us, the first communications in and out of an emergency area may not necessarily come from an affiliated agency. It may be the person who's in that hospital who had his HT when that earthquake happened and that hospital crashed, and he just happened to have and he's the person there that has the communications. Well, if he doesn't know what the EMA agencies are asking for, and if he doesn't know, how to get the information that he needs, we failed somewhere in that chain of, emergency preparedness. So we encourage all amateur radio operators to be prepared. We want an educated, well-prepared amateur radio community. Whether or not your local area says, oh yeah, hey, you can come join us. Whether or not your local REACT says, oh yeah, you can come join us. Whether or not your local affiliated agency says, yeah, you can come join us. We encourage you to have the ICS 100, 200, 700, and 800 because that will give you the basis of how emergency management agencies operate and the chain of commands that they follow. So if you're an amateur radio operator anywhere watching any video 5 years down the road, it's important to take that Oxcom class, to take those ICS classes to learn how to affiliate with your EMA. And because I'm not going to say ARES has been around for 100 years and they're here to save the day, or RACES is written into the FCC and the government and they're here to save the day. I'm saying that amateur radio that happens to be on site when the hoop hits the fan, they're probably going to be the one to get the ball rolling. I talked to a lot of SWIC, statewide interagency coordinators. These are the people who work with all the different, emergency agencies. I talked to a lot of people in emergency communications, and when they go to teach the COM-T class, the COM-L class, there's an incident dispatch class, and all that. Amateur radio is always mentioned as a component of the ICS system. Now, it may be the last component, but it's still a component. So the people who also are like, oh, amateur radio doesn't have any room in emergency communications and it's changing and I'm just going to sit here, on the bench because there's nothing for me to do. Yeah, there is. It just may be in a different role. Maybe you're not going to be the one there saving the day, running the whole command system. But there's definitely a role for amateur radio within incident command and that whole ICS outline. And it's in the form of auxiliary communications. And that's why I say it's to dismiss the GMRS crowd and the people who use FRS and GMRS radios and stuff like that. I mean, think about it. And I'm going to use these kids as an example because they're sitting here. I mean, if there's something, and I say this, right, they're not earthquakes in Florida, so I can't say Man, I feel sorry for the next person that has to put all these chairs back up. I will do it. I promise you I'll do it. You know, if there's something that happens, and we'll say a tornado, because, you know, Missouri, that's a viable thing. If there's a tornado that comes through an area and, you know, mom's at work and dad's at work, and the only thing you have is big brother at home and with his little brother and stuff like that. And of course, neither of them have their ham radio operators, and their phones in their other room, and they're trapped in the living room because that's where they happen to be at. And the only thing they have is their FRS radio. Well, if you're a part of a responding agency and you're just listening to your local 2-meter repeater, you going to hear them? No. So being able to monitor GMRS, being able to monitor FRS, and those services, it's all part of a communications circle that we have, and we need to monitor that. Local CERT teams, they need to be, you know, they need to have the GMRS and the FRS licenses that they're using, and they're able to monitor as well. Questions? What other questions we got?
It's 3 o'clock.
Is it 3 o'clock? Okay. I'm not a preacher, but I am a ham radio operator, and I like to talk. Okay. Told you I like to rag chew. Guys, thanks for coming. I sincerely appreciate you. I want feedback. If you liked what you heard, let me know. If you didn't like what you heard, let me know. And if we can do better, let us know how we can do better. If you do want to support us, $32 a year is a membership, and it allows stuff that we can do on the national level that, you know, maybe a local club couldn't. Because, you know, we can get into the homeschool communities. We can partner with Saturn. We can partner with the American Red Cross. We can partner with the National Weather Service. And I don't think having another national amateur radio association is going to be a bad thing. And I just hope that while I serve as president, I can do it justice, and I can do our members justice. Thanks for coming, guys.